Welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. On today's video, we will be reviewing a very special watch indeed. Now this watch has been sent in by a very enthusiastic subscriber, and it's by far the most expensive watch reviewed on this channel to date. Now this is the ultimate tool dive watch. Now make sure you stay tuned to find out more. Let's introduce you to the watch I've got for you today. As mentioned, this watch was sent in by Neil Davidson, and Neil has sent in another watch which I reviewed, which was a Lagaz Tuna. And on this channel I've reviewed many tuna homages, so it only makes sense that I get the creme de la creme, the ultimate tool watch, the ultimate dive watch, the ultimate tuna. Now this is the original SEIKO Marinemaster SBDX011, also known as the SEIKO Emperor Tuna Marinemaster, aka the DARTH Tuna, hence the intro. Now I really want to express my gratitude to Neil for trusting me with such an expensive watch. He just sent it out. He actually didn't even tell me. He said there's a surprise going to be in the box when he sent me the Lagaz over, and I opened it and I was like, okay, what a good surprise. So price wise, these watches retail at around £2,300 or €2,500 or around $3,000. I've looked at so many tuners, and I think it is about time we do look at the top level tuner to see where the other homages fit, and to see how well this watch is anyway, just to establish that benchmark. Now as you can see in front of yourself, I've got the tuna here, the Emperor Tuna, aka called the DARTH Tuna. Now we're going to talk about the specifications, dimensions, and we're going to talk about the design of the watch, the fit and finish, and the overall feel. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. So here we go, the SEIKO Emperor Marinemaster. I'll be honest, I never thought I'd get my hands on one of these. I had no intention to buy these. Even the SEIKO Marinemaster MM300, which I'm a massive fan of. Yes, they are out of my price range. And at this moment, in my watch hobby career, I don't think I can justify spending, I don't know, around £1,000 to £1,500 on a single watch. Who knows in the future? So massive shout out once again to Neil for sending this watch in, allowing me to get my hands on it, just to see how the rest of the watches do compare, and obviously having the real McCoy, and just giving it a once over. So wrist check for today. I am wearing the Proxima NH36 red dial tuna homage, and you can just see the massive difference. Now recently I've reviewed the Heimdall 1km tuna. I've also reviewed the Lagaz tuna homage, which was sent in by Neil, and I've looked at steel dives and a whole host of other tunas. So let's look at this watch a little bit closer. Now we have to understand that this watch is purpose built. This is a true tool dive watch. Now, so it's not going to be to everybody's taste. It's not a fashion accessory. As mentioned, it's used for one purpose and one purpose only. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the specifications. So let's start off with the case. Now the case is actually a monoblock case. It's full titanium. The shroud is actually, I believe, is stainless steel, and it's coated with this hard coating, PVD coating, whatever you want to call it. Hence the nickname, the DARTH Tuna. Now, the reason it's been made out of titanium, again, purpose built, is because titanium and the case design is impermeable to helium. So that's why this watch doesn't actually feature a helium release valve. Now, the water resistance, 1,000 meters. Now this is why you do pay that price with SEIKO. This is what Prospex ultimately means, professional specifications. Now this watch, even though it says 1,000 meters on the dial, it actually has been down to around 2.5 to 3,000 meters. SEIKO did test this watch and it worked absolutely fine. So it's got the potential for triple what it actually says on the dial. So you have a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and before you say anything, it aligns perfectly well, no playback, It is very light to use. I'd say it's a touch loose as well. It's not as, I don't know, yeah, it's not as I would have expected. I would have expected a little bit more resistance, but it's okay. Now there's also another feature hidden inside the case. Now Seiko have put a small piece of lead underneath the movement between the case, which further adds to the anti-magnetism that this watch provides. Now the bezel insert, strange bezel insert. It took me a while to kind of get my head around it. Now I don't know what the actual construction is, but the bezel actually is laminated. There is a thick piece of laminate on the bezel. I don't know if that is going to come across on the video, but that is what it is. You also have a sapphire crystal, which again adds to the robustness of this watch. Let's look at the movement. Now the movement used in this watch is Seiko's high beat movement, the 8L35. Now the 8L35 is an undecorated version of the 9S55 movement, which is used in the Grand Seiko models. This movement has a 50-hour power reserve, and it's worth mentioning that it's not only undecorated, it's also not adjusted like the Grand Seiko is. However, it is hand assembled. The beat rate of this watch is 28,800 vibrations per hour, which gives you a smooth sweep of 8 ticks a second, and you've got a rated accuracy of -10 to +15. Now the average service time on this watch is from Seiko every 2 to 3 years, which is very, very short. Now compare that to NS35s, you really need to service them. I mean, in fact, I believe they don't need much servicing, especially with the cost of the movement. You know, you're better off just replacing the movement. But with the 8L35, you know, being a better movement, it does need obviously a bit more servicing, and it's not that cheap to replace. Now I did test this watch on the time grapher, and you can see this one in particular is running at +10 seconds a day, very healthy amplitude, and the beat rate at around 0.4, which some may argue is probably a bit high, but it is what it is, and it's actually a lot more stable going through the different positions. So now let's look at some dimensions. As you can see, this watch in my hand is absolutely massive. So the diameter across is 51.5 millimeters from the end of the shroud to the other end, and from top to bottom it's actually 53 millimeters. You've got a lug to lug of 43 mil, because we turn the watch on its side, you'll see the actual lugs are under the shroud. So the distance between there, again, 43 mil. You've got a case thickness of 17.5 millimeters. Now, surprisingly, the weight of this watch is still under 150 grams, which isn't too bad given the dimensions you got in place, but of course it is built out of titanium. And you've got a lug width of 22 millimeters. And just to mention, let's have a look at that crown. You've got a S signed crown, chunky. The crown itself is just under 8 millimeters. So a watch with pretty significant dimensions. Again, purpose-built tool watch. So let's have a look at this stunning dial. Notice how legible this dial is. You can see the time at any length, any distance, and it's very bold. And look at the loomed hour markers. So this is the applied loom that we see on some of the homage watches, and you can see this silver painted outline around all the indices. You've got these blacked out hands, the Tuna frogman style hands with that line that goes through the center. I do like that decoration on the handset. Yeah, it does really make them look quite different, gives it a very striking look. And then at the second hand, you've got this lollipop style hand, which is polished, so it's like black plated, so it does catch a bit of light, and you can actually see the hand separate itself from the minute and the hour hand. Now you do have a date window at 3 o'clock with a printed frame around the date window, but you'll see it's slightly darker. It's not this white that you're used to seeing. That's because the date window actually is silver, and the date itself, it's not printed. I don't know if this comes across as properly on camera as I need it to, but it's actually had this applied paint. That's a nice touch. You have a chapter ring around the dial, and you've got a whole load of text at the bottom. Marine Master, automatic, professional, 1000 meters, and just at the 6 o'clock on either side, Japan ATEL 35 and 00C0 being the model number of this watch. Very striking dial, and as you saw in the intro, that lume is fantastic. Seiko's proprietary lume, Lumibright of course, great longevity. It does outlast a lot of lume out there and a lot of watches out there. The bezel, I touched upon it just before, very loose, but it is very accurate, which is surprising for Seiko. But I think at this price point, you know, they can't afford any misalignments here. The shroud, as I mentioned, stainless steel shroud, very thick, and I think this adds the weight because the rest of the watch is indeed titanium. Screw down crown, let's have a look. Very smooth on opening the crown. Same as the NH35, you pull it out once and you can change the date. And you pull it out the second time to hack the movement. Now the NH35, you turn clockwise to rotate the hands. This you turn anti-clockwise. And of course you've got this accordion style rubber strap. I wish it was like the newer silicone straps that they've got on the newer entry-level dive watches. They're a lot softer. This is not as soft, but it's also not as horrible as the ones that you see in the Seiko SKX models. Now the keep that you got here, again, it's coated in black. It's Seiko engraved, brushed. So we turn the watch around and you can see the case back. Helium gas, divers, 1000 meters, Seiko. You've got the wave pattern in the center, Marine Master, serial number, and just specifications. And in the bottom right there, you can see stainless steel and titanium. Like I said, it's not something that for me, which I would buy, I would wear. But you know, it is that purpose-built watch. So if you're a massive dive fan, and I believe the owner of this watch, he actually was a diver himself back in his early days, so you know, it totally makes sense why he would have one. So let's try it on my nimble 6.5 inch wrist. Hopefully it doesn't break. So, you know, considering the 52 mil diameter, 53 mil almost across the top, it doesn't sit overly large if you look at it face on. Yes, of course it's big, but yeah, I don't know. Of course with the side profile, it's just massive, but you know, it's meant to sit on a wetsuit. You're not gonna, you shouldn't be wearing this under a suit. Of course, if you want to, you can, if you're gonna wear it out and about casually, but you know, it's made to take down into the depths of the ocean. So some similarities, now you know where Steel Dive kind of get the dial from. When we look at, we've looked at multiple Steel Dive watches. Just bear with me, let me get this off. So we looked at multiple Steel Dive watches, and you can see, a similarity in the type of dial that they go for. They also go for that applied lume, that layered lume effect. And you can see where they've clearly got it from. And, even though they're not applied indices, I think this is just as effective, just as bright. And I'm sure Heimdall will do a dial like this. Proxima, I think, are the only ones that do it quite differently. And they apply that, more MM300 style of dial with the applied hour markers. But, looking at this watch, you can tell it's very, very effective and simplistic in design. And Tuna, this actual Tuna model, has a rich history going into Seiko, and it is one of the most iconic watches that Seiko have produced. One of a kind, and they've totally owned this otherwise very unusual case shape. But I think pound for pound, for this level of professional diving equipment, this diving watch, they are actually rated really high, they're rated quite well, and the price is actually considered very decent, very reasonably priced. And you know, it is deemed that these watches are incredible value for money for what they actually offer. Interestingly enough, that Lagos that I had, that Lagos tuna in hand, feels very, very close to this. So yeah, I enjoyed messing around with this watch, enjoyed having it in my hand. Thank you once again, Neil. These watches will be coming back to you shortly. Thank you for your patience. I have had them for quite a bit. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you on my next video.